Hey there. This here is a Canon 450D digital Rebel XSI SLR camera. I got it pretty recently, and the other day I put a video up showcasing a little anomaly with the software that came with the camera, and someone had sent me a message saying, you know, hey, could you actually do like a full review on the thing? So I am pretty new to photography. I've been using point and shoots up until this point, so I'm by no means an expert at this stuff, but I did a little bit of reading on SLRs, went around, like, took a look at a couple different ones, and wound up with this one based on my research and based on my personal experience. So this review is going to be under that premise. I'm by no means a photography expert or anything like that, so this will kind of be done under the premise that you're coming from a point and shoot, coming from the point and shoot world, and maybe you want to jump into getting an entry-level SLR like this. So there are a number of different models that I looked at. The XSI, the Canon 40D, which is like their mid-level SLR. It's a little bit more expensive than this. Nikon also makes some comparable cameras to both of those units. And I like Nikon. I think they make some nice units, some pretty good kit, but I don't know. I think I'm just kind of more on the Canon side of the camp. I'm a little bit more familiar with their menu system, and also one of the big things that kind of catalyzed me to choose this over the Nikon units is that it has live view, which is a feature that we'll go over in a little bit. So in terms of this versus the 40D, 40D is definitely a better camera, but it is more expensive. The reason why I went with this is, number one, the price. Number two, it is a newer camera, so it's got some nice features like live view. It's got automatic dust cleaning on the sensor. It's got some neat stuff. So I don't think it's going to be outdated for a little bit. And also, the 40D, in all honesty, I think it's too much camera for a photography noob. So I went with the cheaper model, pretty much under the assumption that if I stick with it and I really start getting into photography, which I'm actually enjoying this thing quite a bit, that by the time I get ready to upgrade where my abilities have matched the camera, and the camera has become the limiting factor to the picture quality of the pictures that I'm taking, then, you know, at that point in time I can upgrade, and they will have passed beyond the 40D and probably beyond even the 50D, which is you know, kind of like their top grade mid-level SLR that's out there now. So I don't know, we'll get going. I think what I'm going to do is probably go through, explain the ergonomics and the features of the camera, kind of go over everything. There's a lot to know about these things. There's no way in a 10-minute video, or even if I break this up into two 10-minute sections, even in 20 minutes, that I can go over all the functions. So I'm going to kind of just run through everything under the assumption that anyone that's watching this video is going to be someone that's never even really picked one of these things up, and you're coming from a point and shoot. You want to see if it's something that would be conducive to you actually being able to use it in a real world situation. So apologies ahead of time that I'm talking quick. I tend to do that in these YouTube videos, to squeeze as much information in as little amount of time as possible. So I don't know, but we'll get going. First thing you're going to notice is this rotary dial up on the top over here. Now, pretty much all digital SLR cameras have these, and this is going to allow you to go through the different modes that the camera has. These bottom modes over here are what Canon deems basic modes. The top modes are what Canon calls creative modes. So basic modes are basically factory preset modes that don't have any degree of adjustability. They just come like plug and play, like preset things. So we're going to turn the camera on. We've got basic modes for portrait, landscape, macro modes, sports for moving things, night portrait, and flash disabled mode. Okay, so any of these, they're just presets from the factory. Close-up mode automatically pops the flash up if it wants, automatically takes the picture. All the parameters are automatically set for you. There's no degree of adjustability. You don't mess around with them at all. By the way, this is a quick little feature. You'll probably see it flash on and off. There's a little sensor up over here, so if I had this thing on and I brought my face close to the eyepiece, see what happens? The screen goes on and off. So number one, to get rid of the glare in your eye when you're looking through here, and number two, to save on battery life. So it kind of serves a dual purpose. At any rate, all these are going to be just factory defined. You don't have any degree of adjustability with them. We go over here to this square box that's in between the basic modes and the creative modes. The square box is full auto mode. Full auto mode isn't catered towards any particular type of shooting scene, like a portrait or landscape or, you know, whatever. It's just full auto. It does what it needs to do. It's kind of like a no-brainer point and shoot function. Automatically pops the flash up if it needs it. It does whatever it needs to do. Okay, that's full auto mode. Now we get into the creative user modes. There are 5 of them. First one over here is priority mode, I believe they call it. Basically what this one does is it's kind of like a step down from full auto mode. This will automatically adjust the shutter speed and the aperture for you. And the difference between this and full auto mode is it lets you have a little bit more adjustability. I can adjust the ISO, the white balance, the exposure compensation over here. I can do whatever. A little bit more adjustable. This over here, TV, time value mode, also known as shutter priority mode. It's exactly what it sounds like. The shutter takes priority. So in this mode, I have the ability to adjust the shutter speed. And what it does is the shutter's a priority. The camera adjusts the aperture based on what it sees fit. The optimal setting for the shutter speed that you have in the lighting condition that it's in. Okay. AV, aperture priority mode, is the complete opposite. In this mode, I adjust the aperture value. The camera itself adjusts the shutter speed. Okay. Moving on, we have M for manual. Manual mode is exactly what it sounds like. It lets you pretty much adjust everything. The only thing that we don't have a degree of adjustability over in manual mode is the exposure compensation over here, which really isn't a big deal because you can adjust all the other parameters, so you got plenty of settings to work with light. And last but not least, auto depth of field mode. Very similar to P, but automatically the camera sets the depth of field for you. And again, we can still have a little bit of a degree of adjustability with these settings over here, the ISO and the exposure comp. So those are the basic modes for the camera. We'll, I guess, now go over some of the ergonomics and the menu system and how things work. Now, one of the big concerns that I had about this, as opposed to the 40D, which is the other camera I was really considering, is its ability to adjust parameters on the fly. You don't want to buy a camera that you get out there and, yeah, it can take great pictures, but if you have to go into this like complicated menu system in order to get in there and change parameters to get those pictures to be good, you don't want to be missing shots because you were playing around with buttons, in other words. So I was a little bit worried about that because the 40D, if you look on the top of it, has an additional LCD display screen up over here and a couple dedicated buttons to changing different parameters on the camera. This does not have an additional screen. It actually does pretty well with being able to set things on the fly, and we'll show you how that happens. Okay, so the scroll wheel up over here. This is pretty much like your go-to adjustment button that allows you to adjust a lot of the parameters in the camera. So we're going to start with shutter priority mode, which again allows us to adjust the shutter speed and then adjust the F number by itself based on the situation that you're in. If we turn this back and forth, okay, we can see that it's adjusting the shutter speed. Okay. Now this is actually a multifunctional scroll wheel over here. If we're say in manual mode, for instance, again, it adjusts the shutter speed if we want. Okay. But I can also, with the scroll wheel, adjust the aperture, and I do that by pushing down this AV aperture value button and then using the scroll wheel again. Okay. So see how the F number is being altered over here? If I let go of AV, it's the shutter button. Okay, so I can toggle back and forth between the two. I can also use it to adjust the exposure compensation in modes that allow that. Again, it's not allowed in manual mode. If we're in aperture priority mode, excuse me, I can do it like that. So we're adjusting with the F number with it, and then if I press this over here again, now it's adjusting the exposure comp. Okay. So right now we know that we can adjust the shutter speed, the F number, and the exposure compensation all without going into a menu system. Nice and easy to adjust things on the fly so far. Okay. ISO has a dedicated button over here on the top. Okay. We push that, brings up a little tiny menu system, but again we use the scroll wheel to go through. Okay. Just press the button again and we're back. So again, we're not really going into a menu system. It's pretty quick on the fly. That's about how long it takes to adjust it. So pretty fast. We got shutter speed, F number, exposure comp, and ISO, all very quickly adjustable without going into a menu system. So, you know, unlike the 40D, we don't have a display screen up here, but here, and even I'll show you in live view mode, you're able to view all these settings at any given point in time, and you're able to go through them without without getting into a complicated menu system.